college basketball. We'll get into the transfer portal in a second, Etan. I want to start you with this. This NCAA tournament, Paulie says it's the worst NCAA tournament that he's watched, I think, ever. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Yeah, he said in his lifetime. I kind of look at it as we got the 4 best teams. We got 4 teams that are in the top 10 of the KenPom rankings ever since they started them. What do you make of the Final Four that we're about to get? Do you like what you've seen through this tournament, or do you think it's been boring because the favorites have dominated?
Well, I've seen some good games. I really the comeback. Because I thought Michigan kind of had with Auburn.
Yeah.
I'm trying to not make sure. Yeah, and they came back. In dramatic fashion. I don't know. I've enjoyed the games. I understand that there's no Cinderellas, so I get that aspect of it. I get the aspect that the mid-majors are kind of struggling. I do understand that aspect, but I've enjoyed the games myself.
Yeah, I have as well.
What about the Syracuse news that just broke today that Carmelo Anthony has made the Hall of Fame?
I think that's great. Carmelo's had nothing but great things in the news for the past few days. I saw him discussing that he wanted to, buy into the Wizards organization. I think that would be great. He's going to do the commencement speech at SU. I think that's great. It's all positive for Carmelo now. I think very well earned. He's had a great career, so I'm happy for him.
Paulie brings up the transfer portal and, says he feels like it's creepy, right? Everybody's looking at, who's a certain athlete following on social media. And we're trying to read between the lines of emojis on tweets and Instagram and so on and so forth. If we put you in charge, Etan, of this whole mess of college basketball, what is the ideal solution in your mind of this, free agency at the end of every year? How would you limit it? Would you limit it? Would you change the dates of the portal being open and when guys can leave? And if we put you in charge, what would you do? How would you handle it?
So I definitely wouldn't have the transfer portal open while March Madness is still going on. I wouldn't have that. The difficult part of limiting it to one transfer is because the coaches don't have any limit. If you saw how many coaches have moved around just this tournament, I don't think it's fair to penalize a player when his coach leaves or gets fired. So I don't think that should definitely count against the player. But at the same time, I do understand that the 1,000 or however many in both men's and women's that are in the transfer portal. That's a lot. I'm not going to say that's not a lot. But it's just that coaches aspect that really makes it a little difficult because they can leave anytime they want to, and the coaches portal is always open, like Jay Billis keeps saying, and he's 100% correct.
Yeah, no, that's true. We haven't talked to you since the latest news came out regarding SU's roster that Peter Majstorovic has decided to hit the portal. He's a guy that I think we all enjoyed watching play, right? He kind of did the little things and the dirty work and stuff that didn't show up in the box score. Why do you think he ultimately left? Do you think it was, he saw what the future looked like here from a playing time perspective and wanted to go somewhere for a bigger role? Do you think it was, NIL related? What do you think led to his decision to decide to depart?
It might have been a little bit of both. He's shown enough to be able to gain a little bit of interest. So I'm sure there's other schools that are, in his ear or in his agent's ear, his representative's ear, saying that, hey, you can have a bigger role on our program. You know what I mean? And I think that's what happens with a lot of the guys that left. I don't think that's necessarily that he's turning his back on SU or there's any bad blood. I think it's just, a business decision. Now, did it surprise me a little bit? I did kind of think he was going to stay. I thought he had the opportunity to kind of, grow. And, I agree. I think I heard Paulie saying earlier that the days of, players just kind of improving over the years may be over. And I think he was somebody that definitely had that opportunity to really improve, over the years. But it's a different time now. So when you have another place where you could go and maybe be promised more minutes and, better NIL, you make a business decision. I can't be mad at him for that.
Syracuse did add a center out of the portal, or at least a power forward, 6'9". He's a guy that I think maybe Syracuse is targeting as a potential center. William Kyle spent last year at UCLA after being the Defensive Player of the Year out in the Summit League. I know you probably don't know a lot about him. We don't know a lot about him. We haven't really seen him play, but just in terms of the profile of player that he looks like on paper, a guy who blocks shots, he seems to be athletic, can finish around the rim. What are your thoughts on that addition to the roster?
Well, it's literally what all the fans were screaming all year that they wanted, as far as his attributes of what he brings to the table. I know a lot of people are looking at how much he played last year, but that's why he's transferring. That wasn't the right situation for him. That doesn't mean that he's not a player that could contribute and really help, our roster next year. So, the highlights that I've seen, they look good. He looks athletic. He looks like he could, get out on the pick and roll. It looks like he could finish. He looks like he'd be a rim protector. It looks good to me. You know what I mean? I don't know what fans were really expecting. So a lot of people were saying this is not, what they thought. I was like, well, who was you trying to get Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? I don't know. Some fans, you're not going to please them anyway. But I think that everybody should give him a chance because he looked all right from the highlights to me.
How many centers do you think a roster would need, in today's era of college basketball?
I think you need a center that like two different types of centers. So one that can kind of step out. You need a rim protector. You need somebody that can rebound, like an Eddie Lampkin style of rebounding, type of rebounding. So if you can get all of those attributes in one player, then that's good. But usually you can't. So you just have to kind of piece it together, and then that's when you have to, play different guys when they're, when the situation calls for it.
Paulie brought up the question earlier about, when do you start getting concerned that, Syracuse hasn't landed a point guard, for instance, or, they have all these roster spots to fill. And again, the portal's only been open for a week and a half, and I don't think Paulie was suggesting that he's concerned now. But we'll ask you that. Like, what is your expectation in terms of what kind of timeline would you feel comfortable with in terms of signing guys out of the portal?
I don't know about timeline. You just want to get the right fit. I know sometimes it's a race against time. You want to grab somebody quick, but I don't know. Sometimes if you want to take your time and make sure that the person is the right fit, there's value in that as well. We're definitely going to need to get a point guard. Definitely going to need to get a shooter. And I've seen different shooters being named and different, but it is, and you mentioned it earlier, it is kind of a weird element that they say, okay, well, who's following who on social media? And I heard that this person was, at Syracuse area at a restaurant. I'm like, yeah, that I'm not really interested in that kind of a game, but, they're going to find someone, you know what I mean? So sometimes it takes time and everybody just has to be a little patient.
All right. Last question for you, Etan. Do you have a pick for who wins the national title?
I would like to see Duke lose.
Yeah.
I'll go on record saying that. But if I was a betting man, you know what I mean? I would probably put my money on Duke, but I would love to see Duke lose again if you didn't hear me the first time.
Yeah, I just as a conference perspective, I think it's really important for the ACC to have win the Natty this year, because even in their worst year, they would still have the national championship. So I think of all the years I'm rooting for Duke, this would be the one.
Yeah, that's a difficult sentence for me to say, though.
I'm not like...
I hear you, Paulie, and I respect that. That's just a difficult sentence for me to say.
Last one, I'm going to follow up on Duke for a second. I've seen some comparisons with Cooper Flagg and like what Carmelo did back in 2003 as a freshman. He's obviously uber talented. I mean, can you speak to, I guess, being a freshman, he's on a short list, right, of some of the best freshmen of our lifetime, I would say.
Yeah, well, if they do go on to win a championship, I think that's a fair comparison to start comparing him to what, Carmelo did, his freshman year. I think that's fair. Obviously, he's an incredible talent. Obviously, he's going to, do a lot in the NBA. He has all the skill set and everything like that. So, I guess it's a fair comparison. But, just to say again, I'm not going to be rooting for Duke.
Yeah.
So I would love to see an upset myself. I hear you, Paulie, on the ACC, but, I don't know. No.
All right, we shall see. All four number one seeds are there in San Antonio. We'll see how it shakes out. Etan, thanks so much for the time. As always, we appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, Etan Thomas joining us here on the show. We'll take a timeout. We're going to keep the interviews rolling. We've got James Colgan from golf.com. He will join us on the other side. We're back after this on ESPN Radio.